Okay, I think we should keep get started and while people coming in and today welcome everyone to the 14th capacity building training for the young and emerging evaluators and today's workshop is collaborate between APIA, YEEs Asia and YEEs and also APC Hub and next slide please. Next slide. Thank you. And today I will be your moderator. My name is Chon, and I'm currently the co-founder, and co-leader of YEEs China, and it is really an honor to be with you today. Next slide. And just before we start, I'm gonna quickly go over the ground rules. So please rename your Zoom name in format as above for first name, last name, and if you prefer, you can put your gender pronouns there. And then the room decorum is that turning off your camera and microphone while our speaker is presenting. And in the Q&A sessions, if you have questions, please feel free to raise up your hands. And also when you ask, you can turning on your camera for sure. And also please feel free to leave your questions in the chat box, and we will be moderating those. And I'll also be assisting in asking those during the last Q&A sessions. Next slide. And the training objective of the capacity building sessions is also to enhance the knowledge and skills in AI and evaluation for this session specifically, as you know about the topic. And then the second objective is to strengthen the evaluation network in the Asian and Pacific and to connect YE with more experienced evaluators. Next slide. Next slide, please. Thank you. And now I will be handing over the ground to our opening remarks speaker, Heluna, who is the co-leader of YEEs Asia and YEEs Mongolia. Heluna, welcome.
Welcome, thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Helena, as you have heard. So a very warm welcome to everyone for the 14th capacity building training for young and emerging evaluators. I'm incredibly excited to see so many passionate young evaluators from across the world joining us today for AI-enabled evaluation one-on-one. And we're living in this incredible time where technology is transforming the way we think and work and solve problems, and evaluation is, of course, no exception. And artificial intelligence isn't obviously just a tool, it's opening up incredibly new ways of understanding data and patterns and making decisions that are faster and smarter and could be more evidence-based. So what used to take weeks or months can now be explored in minutes, giving us more free time to focus on what truly matters, which is, improving programs and empowering communities and making a real impact. So for young emerging evaluators like us, this is incredibly huge. We have this unique opportunity to experiment and innovate and shape the future of our field, and AI allows us to go beyond traditional methods to ask bigger questions and to use data creatively as well as ethically. But it's not only about technology, it's more about thinking critically and being curious and collaborating with each other to make evaluation more meaningful as well as inclusive. And I'm thrilled to be here representing YEEs Asia and YEEs Mongolia. I've always believed that learning is strongest when it's shared through collaboration and dialogue and hands-on experience and experimentation. And that's what exactly today is all about. And this is your chance to explore AI in evaluation and ask questions and share your ideas and imagine what's possible when we combine technology as well as passion and purpose. And I'm incredibly excited to be here with Zach Tilton as well as Tang. So I encourage you all to fully engage today and ask questions and participate actively, challenge your assumptions, and think about how you can apply what you learn to your own evaluations and to your own work experiences. This is a space for experimentation and learning and growth. So congrats, everyone. Welcome.
Thank you, Helena. That is a really passionate opening remarks, and with all that momentum has been built, and let's get started to our today's training session with that. Next slide. And today we're going to have our lecture with Zach. He is an evaluation specialist of MEL-RL Tech Initiatives, and really looking forward to this very interesting topic about how we can utilizing AI in evaluations. Zach, I will handing the floor to you.
Great. Thanks, Chang, and thanks, Khaliuna, and thanks to Apia and all of the organizations that have been coordinating on this and that offer this service for young and emerging evaluators in the region. I'm really inspired. Yes, I do work as a eval specialist at Merle Tech Initiative, and I do work with AI and evaluation. But before that, I was a young and emerging evaluator and a member of Eval Youth. I joined in 2016, shortly after it was formed, and I was a liaison with Eval Youth and the American Evaluation Association. And then I was elected to the Global Management Group for Eval Youth as the North American representative and the co-founder of the North American chapter of Eval Youth. So I love Eval Youth folks, members. I'm excited to see the growth. I'm excited to see how everyone is supporting one another as we're helping our field meet the moment in terms of really leveraging innovation and to help improve programs, as Khaliuna had mentioned. So aside from that, I'm also a doctoral candidate at Western Michigan University, where I'm pursuing a PhD in evaluation. My dissertation is focused on AI and evaluation, specifically meta evaluation. And and outside of all that, I'm a husband and a dad. I have three kids and a very big poodle. And I like to surf and skateboard and make music and bands. I know many of you all have personal lives outside of your professional lives, but it's our professional identities today that bring us together. So I'm really excited to be talking with you about AI and evaluation. Today's just going to be a bit of a download. We framed this as a 101. We didn't want to assume too much prior knowledge. So I'm going to be sharing some observations from the field. Another role that I have is that I am a co-lead in what's called the Natural Language Processing Community of Practice. And that is a space for practitioners to learn about AI and both good old-fashioned and generative AI and how it can be applied to our work. So if you're interested in learning more, I'll be sure to share information. I would love or to have more YEEs join that network, as it would help your objectives of being connected with seasoned and experienced evaluators. All right, let's jump right in. What I'll say is I love the chat. The chat is like when I see folks typing questions in the chat, having commentary, responding to each other, that makes my heart sing. And we're going to have some activities today as we're downloading information that we'll do in the chat. But just I hope that that is going nonstop, and that you're giving us as moderators and conveners a run for our money as we're trying to keep up with all of that. And we're going to have a Q&A toward the end. So feel free to queue those up in the chat or save them for that time. Okay, so for the first activity, we're going to be using the chat. What I want you to do is on the next slide, I'm going to show an image with a bunch of photos, and I want you to pick a photo that best describes how you are feeling, thinking, relating, or just vibing with AI or not vibing with AI. Which photo best represents how you are feeling at the present moment? And then in the chat, what I will want you to do is to just introduce yourself, your name at the very least, and then which image you picked and why. If you'd like, you can share your role and your which organization or where you're coming from. But again, we're going to pick a photo. We're going to that helps us or that represents how we feel about AI. We're going to share our name, that photo, and why we picked it. Okay. So here we go. So I see some old friends who may have done this activity with me before. So if you have, please do model what this looks like. I'm going to even do it this morning. And go. Hi, Marcia. Hi, everyone. Okay, so hopefully folks have access to the chat. I would love to see you, but I've just modeled what this looks like. So just share your name. Again, if you want to, you can share like Marcia shared, your role and what you're doing. But really let us know what's your animal and why did you pick it? Why did you have it? Why does it represent how you're feeling? Okay, our colleague, oh, our colleague from Mongolia said owl, looks a bit tired. That's fair. That's good. Thank you. We have Cecilia. Okay, now they're coming in really fast and I gotta open these up to keep up. Cecilia, the cougar who looks a little skeptical. Yes, I like that one. A little bit of a side eye, and that is exactly the emotion I associated with that. Thanks, Cecilia. Oh, Kanishka, chameleon. Keep jumping from one AI tool to another without having built expertise on it.
All this thing now,
That's a,
Elise before. Elisa,
if
Elisa,
you
man, yeah,
are you okay, can we mute this colleague of ours? They may not know they've gone off mute. These are hysterical. I'm just reading through these. These are funny. The crocodile, I'm scared of AI is gonna take over humanity. Monkey, because it's more closely human. Uh, Butterfly, but we don't know why the butterfly. Oh, okay, we see ones because they're flying, traveling a lot. Okay, yeah, I've been doing a lot of traveling for work. I feel you. Flamingos, different hats. Appreciate that. I'll just go through a few more of these, but I would love to, the shocked monkey. I would love to have y'all, everyone have a chance to kind of share. Okay, Ukaturs, I'm liking this. You are a tiger on the hunt for opportunities with AI. That is a great mindset to kind of be in. And then we have another colleague, Wadapan, who says tiger, but it's powerful and dangerous. Resembling purity. Oh, I'm loving all of these connections with these animals and maybe what they represent to you or to your cultures. Pratik is a night owl. Okay. If you haven't got a chance, continue to add your introduction and your name. I'm going to close the chat for me and then kind of transition here as to, why are we doing this? Why are we thinking about the animal kingdom? Well, there's many different folks who are coming here from different backgrounds and vantage points and world outlooks. And, it's important to recognize that we all have different positions when it comes to AI, and we should respect that. Two, there's a lot of uncertainties about AI right now. And this activity, which is actually an activity that evaluators can use in evaluation facilitation, you maybe have heard of photo voice, which is a data collection and also analysis procedure. This is called photo language, and it's an opportunity for shared sense making and facilitation. So feel free to put this in your toolbox as a young and emerging evaluator that you can use with your next group if you need to break things up, but also need to try to explore some ideas and concepts. Okay, so it's kind of a wild animal kingdom right now, because a couple years ago, we all know what happened. ChatGPT dropped and it reached 100 million users in 2 months, which was the fastest consumer technology adoption in history. McKinsey has projected that 2.6 to 4.4 $1 trillion USD of annual economic impact, with 40 billion in AI startup investment in 2023. That's only increased in 24, and it could in 25. And this is really the first time that advanced AI has become directly accessible to the general public without technical expertise, and not just Alexa or Siri, but meaning the access to the tool that you're able to use in a way that can enable your work or your personal life, and to be kind of that thought partner that we've kind of seen in the movies, so to speak, right? So I want to mark that there was a big disruptive moment at late 2022. And the reason we're here together on this webinar is because of that moment and how its ripples are affecting all the professional domains, especially knowledge workers. I want to start with what knowledge or what artificial intelligence is. Just like evaluation, there are tons of definitions of AI, and no one's really agreed on one set definition, and it's probably best that we have multiple definitions for our different purposes. Okay, so OECD has AI as a AI system is a machine-based system that can, for a given set of human-defined objectives, make predictions, recommendations, or decisions influencing real or virtual environments. That's a one particular definition, but it is not all encompassing, and I don't think we need to search for an all encompassing one, but I am zooming out slightly for the next two. The International Standards Organization says that artificial intelligence is the capability of a system to acquire, process, and apply knowledge, and to carry out actions to achieve specific goals. That is is a broader definition, but again, some folks may bristle at certain things, especially carrying out specific actions as it gets to more of that agentic type of AI. At a high level, just a kind of crude way to think about it, I like to think about it as where robotics can extend physical reach, AI can extend mental reach, right? And what I like about that is that with robotics, there is a human who's in control typically, or has programmed the automation. And with AI, it helps us to realize that we want to use AI to enhance our capabilities as knowledge workers, as evaluators. So continuing, there's two broad categories of AI that we can think of. There's certainly multiple ways to slice these up, but there's a general consensus that there's discriminative AI, or decision-making AI, or creative or generative AI, right? And so the decision-making AI is what we call the good old-fashioned AI. That's the type of AI that we've been using for a handful of decades now, that is very rule-based, and you can use, within the past decade, advances in machine learning and natural language processing to classify, to make differences between images, right? So if you've ever tried to log into into a website, and you had a CAPTCHA where you have to figure out what type of image is what, and you click on those images. That is an example of AI, artificial intelligence, being trained by just internet bystanders who are trying to just log on to a website. But other examples are spam filters or fraud checks. So the analogy with the good old-fashioned AI is it's like a referee that makes determinations of what's in and what's out. Generative AI, as we're probably familiar now that we've had a few years or a couple of years to experiment, or maybe not, maybe we've been hearing about it. But the key distinction is that it creates new data. So instead of looking at differences between categories, there's an aspect where you're picking up on patterns to make new data. The examples are, again, you've maybe seen some AI art or interacted with a chatbot. The strengths are that you can have varied output, you can easily prompt. There are some limits that are becoming less limited, but they can be very expensive to run, costly, they can hallucinate. And this is more like an artist. So how does generative AI work? Maybe you've seen something to help you understand how these machines work. The reality is this is a very a big simplification of what is a complex architecture of neural networks. With regards to generating text, generative AI takes a combination of words and asks what is the most probable word to come in this string of symbols or tokens or words. And so what's really happening is that it's math and very sophisticated statistics that is what's happening, and computations, matrix multiplications that are happening in the background when we chat with a chatbot. So there's no, and not that I feel like this group would need to, but we don't need to think metaphysically about AI in the sense that, yes, folks have talked about and science fiction has written about this moment where computers will become sentient. That's certainly not what's happened, and in my opinion, not likely to happen anytime soon. But we don't need to be too hung up on that, because we can consider, if we know how it works, we can get a little bit better at understanding how to ask and how to ask it to perform tasks and what not to ask. So with that being kind of a backdrop of AI overall, we're going to jump into AI-enabled evaluation. Our view is that it's just the responsible use of AI to improve eval processes and products. Now, there's a lot to unpack there, and what does responsible look like, and how do we know we've improved? And so, those types of curiosities and questions we'll hopefully get into a little bit deeper here, but we'll love to hear your ruminations on this, what responsible use looks like. How do we know if the processes or products are improved or better? So just a bit of an overview of AI-enabled evaluation. Again, the pre-2022, we were certainly writing about AI and its use in programming and evaluation. My organization put out in 2020 a series of learning papers called State of the Field Reports. And so we had 4 papers. One of them was focused on emerging technologies. And so we did address AI. We had a whole paper on big data, which has really kind of been rebranded as AI. Or maybe it was already AI and machine learning at that point, and it just needed to kind of have a different moniker. 2022 happened, we had that inflection point. Then 2023, there was just a lot of confusion, kind of scratching our heads. We started to see blog posts, symposia, webinars like this one. Our community of practice started in 2023. 2024, we had more peer-reviewed work that was being published. I started to see more presentations in conferences, a lot of experimentation. And now in 2025, we're seeing more policy development and realizing that this isn't going anywhere anytime soon, and how our evaluation offices and units to ensure quality when AI is involved. There's been research on AI-enabled evaluation, and hopefully we are evaluating the quality of our AI-enabled evaluations with meta evaluation. So how can we integrate AI in evaluation? Well, there's two ways to broadly think about it, at least how I think about it. One is evaluation adjacent integration, and that is those, emails that maybe are automated or schedules, helping us with brainstorming sessions or improving our communications, maybe rewriting an angry email to not sound so angry, organizing documents. These are the tasks that you've probably or possibly used the technology for, but that every knowledge worker would be doing, right? And so it's adjacent to evaluation, but still important for our work. The other way is evaluation specific integration. And so this is when we think about our procedures, our tasks, those professional functions that make our discipline and profession unique, using AI to automate data collection, analyzing data with algorithms, creating evaluation reports or drafts or revising those reports, doing qualitative work, facilitating evaluation processes. So these are two ways that you can start to think about your AI use. Is it adjacent to my evaluation specific tasks, or am I enabling an evaluation specific function? And so with that, I want to have another pause. So I'm going to open up the chat here, but I want to ask everyone to consider, how have you used AI in your evaluation work? And if you've yet to use AI in your evaluation work, how might you use AI in your evaluation work? Okay. Vanilla is saying you could. How do you ensure data security when feeding and processing evaluation? That's great. Let's put that in the parking lot. We're going to come back to those questions. That might be one of the first ones. I love that Cecilia is responding to Vanilla, by the way, there. So you can always respond in line. Interest in data collection process. All right. We can talk about that. Document review. All right. Nelly for document review. Extract emergent patterns from qualitative surveys. Yeah, unstructured data is how I got to AI. Having too much data, too much text that I had time to process, and trying to see if I could extend my capabilities, providing the raw data for analysis to get insights, analyzing trends. Okay, so Ifua Lua has mentioned that they've used it for qualitative analysis. Ifiolua, sorry, I didn't see that correctly. Team communications, okay. RAKD looks like a superstar there with multiple use cases. Now, as we're going through here, I'm loving seeing these use cases, frameworks for data collection. I want to use, I'd invite you to find a colleague, not one that you know, but just someone that is written something interesting, maybe of, Marcia here is talking about understanding program logic, data analysis. If you find a comment that someone has shared, I want you to ask them a question, right? So this is just additional way how we can maximize the use of our virtual space here and time together. We're all kind of across different countries. we're in different eval youth chapters or VOPEs, or maybe we're not and we're wanting to learn about that. This is a great chance to kind of connect, learn more from your peers, real-time analysis, structured data. Okay. Theory of change. These are really, okay. We kind of need to, I would love to save this chat and share it with folks, because these are very fascinating use cases. And how is it better than using NVIDIA or SPSS? That's a great question, Neha. I would love to come back to that during the Q&A. Love that question. All right, I'm going to move on. Here are just some summary use cases. Many have been mentioned in the chat here. Most of these come from our natural language processing community of practice or our own experience using AI. And the idea is just to kind of give you a sense that this technology, at least unlike in vivo or SPSS, is general purpose. So you'll often have software that gets made for a particular use case, whether that's PowerPoint or whether that's Power BI, those kind of utilization reporting technologies. As you know, this generative AI technology can accompany any aspect of the work that you're doing. And it's up to us to really understand how the technology works and to learn from one another's experimentations as to, what's worthwhile. Because sometimes it is not worth. You experiment with AI on a task, and then you get to the end of that experimentation, and you realize you had a cul-de-sac. You've gotten to the end of the road, and you can't go any further. And that's an okay thing to do, that to have happen. I know it's frustrating. It's almost like Thomas Edison, who's inventing the light bulbs and finds 1,000 ways not to make a light bulb with all those failures. But the idea is that there's plenty of use cases in our craft that we can use AI for. And the challenge is really just understanding how to use it in a way that can be meaningful for us, because not all uses are the same. So with that, let me just share 2 examples of how I've used AI in my evaluation work. The first is a case study on using it for, as many of you had asked, extracting or analyzing qualitative data. How we used it is we used it in what's called first cycle qualitative coding. There's a very popular coding theorist called Saldana, and they have a book called the Qualitative Coding Handbook, and it's on its 6th or 7th edition. And in that, there's different procedures by either a first cycle code or a second cycle code. And so as you can see here, this whole rectangle represents our qualitative data analysis procedure. The data comes in, we had the first cycle, and then after we had the first cycle, we go to the second cycle, and then we kind of get to our sense making with the evaluative conclusions. Zooming in on that first cycle, what we did is we had our data, we used a turnkey solution. So I was commissioned by an organization that had already had a license with an emerging, at the time, AI for evaluators technology. Many of you might have heard it. It's called AI Lies. It certainly served our purpose as well. They have a lot of documentation. I've spoken with folks who've really enjoyed it, folks who weren't super impressed. I'm kind of won't make a determination or recommendation for you to use it or not use it. What I will say is that it worked for us at this point, and this was about 2 years ago. And how it worked for us was we uploaded certain transcripts, and we had 3 outputs. We had a summarization, We had an inductive thematic analysis, inductive meaning that we didn't prompt it to look for specific themes. So many folks maybe call this emergent themes. And then we had an evaluation question analysis or a deductive analysis where we said, here's our 4 evaluation questions. What part of the transcript speak to these? All of these were kind of validated by myself, who had created the prompts and checking the outputs. But the outputs then served as inputs for all these other procedures that humans did. So what this enabled us to do was to save over 100 hours of coding. And it just kind of also depends on the team. We had a massive evaluation. We had 4 team members. Not everyone was spoke the same language as their mother tongue. And we were doing the evaluation in English. And so this enabled us to kind of hit the ground running with everybody on the equal playing ground. And then we could do all these extra analytical procedures. And so the one thing I want to kind of to zoom out from is, one, we didn't just let AI do everything. And 2, we only had a specific task we wanted AI to help us with. But because it was such an arduous task, we were able to do much more with our time and go deeper in our analysis than we would have had we not used the AI. So feel free to ask any questions in our, or put them in the chat, and then our moderators will save them for when we get to our Q&A. The next one is a youth-focused evaluation facilitation case, where we were redesigning a theory of change. And so we used a couple of AI tools. First, we used a text-to-image tool, which we did so in WhatsApp, and we invited the youth to articulate the types of changes they wanted to see in their community. And then we used a custom chatbot. We made a custom chatbot for the youth to be an assistant as we were redesigning the theory of change together, as they were redesigning it. And as many of you know, evaluation is a technical craft, and it has a lot of technical terms and kind of premises and understandings. And especially with theory-based work or theory of change work, being able to understand how an input differs from an output, differs from an outcome, differs from a causal link with an assumption or a warrant. We built that as a special assistant for the youth to be able to interrogate the theory of change and to question it and to have that assistant as they were collectively rebuilding the theory of change. So this is, more on this aspect of, you can start simple with tools you have. Both that initial one was a turnkey solution or off the shelf, and this was a custom bespoke tool that we made with Hugging Face and both Chat GPTs. This was a little over a year ago. So some midpoint takeaways, and I realize that I'm coming up on about 15 minutes left, so I am going to zoom through a few things, or at least speed up more than I have been. AI innovation is here. It's not vaporware, so meaning it's not really going anywhere anytime soon. They can help eval practice and teams. Evaluators are open and have been exploring and experimenting, as we see in the chat. And it's likely that whether you're using AI or not, AI is already influencing your evaluation in some way. It's either already on your evaluation team or it's already in your sampling frame. And I don't say that to mean we throw our hands up and we just have to embrace it whole cloth. I mean it descriptively that that this technology is pervasive and for good and for bad, and we have a responsibility as evaluators. Okay, another check-in. What depictions in media about the dangers of technology come to mind? And you can get bonus points for bonus points for AI references. So this could be, I did not know they made a new Chucky movie. Thanks for letting me know. Now I can have more nightmares. Sentient AI. Avengers, Age of Ultron, great example. AI run amok. What else? You can choose movies. Maybe movies is the easiest. Let's feel free to pick a movie where there's some sort of technology that's run amok or dangerous. Yet with the double take Terminator and Avengers. Nice. All right. Minority Report. Yes, that's one. Matrix. Blacklist. Oh, I love Creator. Creator is a really, really, really cool movie with Denzel Washington's son. I forget his name. Black Mirror, of course, the classic. Great question, A. We're going to get to that in this next section. Source code, John Washington, Inception, I, Robot, which I actually haven't seen that movie, but I've seen other adaptations from Isaac Asimov. Okay, this is good. Keep them coming. Give your friends props for their great pop cultural references with emojis. Wally, such a good one. These are some that inevitably come up if you have enough time and you leave folks to it. The Terminators, Matrix, we had both of these actually, Matrix and Terminator. We hadn't had her yet. If you haven't seen her, it's actually really relevant to our day and age. But popular depictions reveal the ways that we're thinking about AI and our concerns. And there's currently two types of dominant camps of discourse with AI. There's the AI safety camp, or the future risks that think about long-term consequences that try to prevent AI from causing harm in the long term, aligning AI goals with human values. So these, you'll often hear folks that ask about probability of doom, or maybe what's the risk that AI becomes sentient. These are the folks that are really concerned about AI becoming sentient and taking over the world, so to speak, or causing havoc. Then you have another camp, which is AI ethics camp, which is not dismissing that those are possibilities, but prioritizes present harms instead of future risks. Because as they have documented and demonstrated, that AI is already here, at least in its non-sentient form, and it's already causing problems for our communities. And they advocate for fairness and transparency, making sure that we can understand how AIs make decisions, and that there's accountability for those involved in building and deploying, and certainly other considerations. We think both have value. We like to think about, maybe a third way of having a responsible AI camp as evaluators, to use AI to advance equity and justice in our evaluation, to translate our ethical principles into practice, to ensure that whenever we create or use tools, that they are inclusive, and that the benefits of AI are shared across communities, and that we have a social responsibility built into its use. Because, and we don't have enough time to go into the vast bodies of work on this, but AI does have bias, and it does cause harm with unchecked bias. Some of these biases are historical. They can be representative in terms of imbalances in the algorithms and who they represent, also how they represent that language language biases, as we'll see in another slide. We talked about the CAPTCHA, but sometimes when you're trying to get on the website and maybe you misclick the button and you get it wrong, there could be bias in labeling when algorithms are being trained. And algorithmic bias means that when you start to get those mistakes built into the system and they accrue, and they then have adverse effects. Two researchers who've been documenting this, though there have been many who've been documenting the challenges of algorithms and decision making. Kathy O'Neill, who said algorithms are opinions embedded in code. We might call them algorithms are values embedded in code if we were to turn that into evaluator speak. And then Safia Noble did work on search algorithms and mentioned they're not just a reflection of our society, but they shape our society. This is a depiction of Western language bias in LLMs. As we know, these often under-resourced languages are not represented in the technology, and that holds significant implications for us in our communities, especially if we don't use a Western language, as much of Asia doesn't, especially the programs that we evaluate. Other issues, the environment. We have energy consumption, high water demand, use of conflict minerals, poor e-waste management. I'm looking at whoever put in Wally. Other tech-induced issues. So given that, how would we know if our integration of AI in evaluation is good or not? Or to what extent is our integration of AI in evaluation good or not? That sounds like a really solid evaluation question for someone to include at some point. So large organizations and companies have started to ask this question, not for evaluation, but just for AI's use generally. And many have landed on principles, articulating values as a principle, and having that be an attempt to guide action. I don't know if I have it on another slide, so I'll just say it here that the difference between a value and a principle is a principle is a value with a verb. So if you see UNESCO's here, it says do no harm. The value of do no harm would be non-malfeasance. That's a value. It's typically an abstract noun, and it's what we use those values to create criteria and standards. Do no harm is that recommendation of how to live the value. ADB, I was just in Manila, and we were working with their independent evaluation division and doing a whole deep dive in AI-enabled evaluation. And they're working on a framework for responsible AI use. Many of these are articulated. So these are the values: people and planet first, safety and reliability, accountability. And then once you get past those initial values, the prescriptions here are optimize AI solutions to limit negative environmental impact. So that is a principle, to optimize AI solutions to limit negative impact. And the same with their other values of safety and privacy and security. Many organizations, like I said, in the kind of state of the field scan, 2025 is a moment where organizations are realizing they need to catch up to the technology or do their best to provide guidance to catch up, to support their teams. But this isn't for evaluation. This is just for programming. At the end of 2023, I was involved in a publication that had multiple articles, and one of which was a research article by Bianca Montrose-Moorhead. And Dr. Montrose-Moorhead had identified from all of the papers that were submitted for this publication, this journal, what were the questions, what were the themes that writers and scholars on AI and evaluation were writing about, and she put them together in these categories. And so there's two classes of questions. This first class is on conceptualization and implementing AI. And the second is on the outcomes of using AI in evaluation. And so you see here the criteria or values, and then the questions that can be asked to know whether or not, our use of AI was trustworthy, or if there was a high understandability. Did AI use an evaluation result in sufficient level of understanding? Because it could be that it doesn't, right? And so to the question earlier about when do we use and when do we not use, part of that, a lot of that is having an understanding of when it's appropriate in terms of ethical instances, what it means to be responsible in its use. This is another way to ask those questions either at the beginning or the end. My organization has resources to share in the natural language processing community practice about assessment tools that can guide practitioner use for that. Here's an example of one organization's, this is the World Bank, and this is the IEG at the World Bank. This was also a 2-year-old, I believe, kind of heuristic. It's a decision guide. But as you'll notice, much guidance is time and context sensitive. They'll say, let's see right here, evaluation synthesis is a no-go for AI, when the reality these days is that, synthesizing evaluations and studies is definitely a big use case for AI. So we believe that we have a professional responsibility as evaluators, and especially as young and emerging evaluators, where the rest of your career is going to be shaped by not only this disruptive technology, but further disruptive technology that we don't know yet, that we need to at least now develop an AI literacy. And where AI literacy is the ability to understand and have the competencies to use technology, communicate, and collaborate, at home and at work, we're advocating for a critical AI literacy, which just simply put means the capacity to interrogate tech as we integrate tech into our eval practice. And so we're hoping that that means that we aren't just going to use a tool without asking critical questions, that we do apply that evaluative thinking to our technology use in our work, even if we have the promise of a lot of gains in terms of making our lives easier, that we need to be able to understand what are the risks, what are the challenges, what are the benefits, and weigh those, and to be constantly asking ourselves, is this working? Is this serving me? Is this useful? Is it helpful for the evaluation participants that I have a responsibility for? Is it harming anyone? So Michael Patton talks about principles, and we think that principles are the way to develop that critical AI literacy, and that they provide guidance for really complex backdrops. And it's a really fast-moving, dynamic, complex environment right now with AI. I mean, we talked about some of the animals that we're feeling like, jumping from one tool to the next without getting the deep nectar as a butterfly, or the tigers that are dangerous. And so we want to invite you all to consider what might be your personal principles. And I'm going to share some on the next slide, and then invite you to maybe craft one that we put in the chat. So as you read my example principles, I want you to think about one that you can share that might be the start of a principle for you professionally as a practitioner or for your team. So again, on the left here, we have the principle, which is a injunction, it's a prescription, it's a guidance: interrogate the tech. This is the strategic principle at the high level. And then we get to operational principles, right? So what does that look like on the ground? Well, think evaluatively about the tools we use, whose values are programmed into those tools, and cut through the noise. So that's just one articulation of how we would say interrogate the technology. The next is understand the tech. So don't settle for theory-free AI-enabled evaluation. That is, if you're going to be using AI to analyze someone's data and you don't understand how the tool that you use works, that's likely going to limit your capacity to determine the quality of the output, the veracity of the output, the trustworthiness. We would never do that for SPSS, where if we were to do a statistical test, we would need to know very specifically what are the assumptions that we need to meet in order to have run a statistical test for particular data. Is it even appropriate for the type of data that we have? Some tests need ordinal data or continuous data. So we know it's more challenging because no one has a book per se that says here's exactly how this thing works for every instance, for every tool that you encounter. But we can develop a general understanding, and that can ensure that it can work against our misuse. And then span boundaries. This is kind of what we're doing right now. We are making connections with this virtual webinar with your colleagues. Hopefully you're noting some names, seeing the folks who are also excited, and maybe reaching out to them on LinkedIn or otherwise to start collaborating. I would love to see just a ton of research and collaboration coming out of Asia on AI-enabled evaluation. I have colleagues when I was in Sri Lanka. Sadi was there as well. He's here now. Many folks who were doing work. I had a colleague from India who was doing research on AI and evaluation. And I'm excited for all different contexts, whether you're in Africa, whether you're in Polynesia, Micronesia, Melanesia, Oceania. We need to be able to make this specific to our instances and regions where we're at. So with that, I want to pause and just take a moment. Can you start to put in the chat a principle that you think might be serve you well? I'm going to put one in. It can be a strategic principle, doesn't have to be typed out. Check the pudding. There's a saying of the proof is in the pudding. Well, I am hopefully going to be checking the pudding on AI outputs. And thank you, Dr. Chung, for sharing that. And it's great folks can share resources in the chat. So would love to see that happen more. Okay, while you're doing that, I'm going to come check on the chat. I would love to see some principles from folks. Think about it. You have some examples here. While you're doing that, I am going to show, this is one example. If you don't know, if you're unfamiliar with UNFPA, they do great work at the Independent Evaluation Office. I partnered with them to help them write their Gen AI powered evaluation function, which is a strategy for using AI in evaluation. Yes, they wrote it primarily for the Independent Evaluation Office, but they also wrote it so they could be helpful for others outside of the office. So feel free to take a look there online. Final key takeaways. I see no brave souls putting in a principle in their chat. Okay, I'm offering a challenge for folks. We need to own and not be owned by AI innovation. And Marco Sagone, who used to be the head of the Independent Evaluation Office, articulates this as, we need to shape and not be shaped by AI. And I think that's really important because we're, as evaluators, concerned about quality. And we should first and foremost be concerned about the quality of our work. Because if our work and our instruments are gunked up and they're not high quality, we're not going to be able to service and help folks that want assistance. If you think of it as like a medical practitioner who has tools that aren't working or isn't trained well, That's not going to be good for health outcomes. And so we have tools that we apply to help folks make value judgments and make decisions about better programming. AI-enabled evaluation should be needs-driven, right? They may be really shiny, good-smelling flowers that us butterflies go from one to the next to taste, but we need to be driven by the pain points that we have as evaluators and what our evaluation needs, what's challenging for us right now that we need help with, and not just what's the shiny thing that's out there. Real harms are here and not some science fiction scenario, right? I'll give you one example. Where I was living in the state north of me in Michigan, the state decided to apply an algorithm to determine the eligibility of folks for food assistance that are provided by the state. Well, the algorithm misclassified 20,000 families, folks who were in poverty below the poverty line. And that had a real world implication for those folks until they were able to figure that out and catch it. So, and that's just one, not a throwaway to dismiss that, but that is an example you'd never hear of it, but it had a real effect in communities. And principles can guide our integration and evaluation. So let's turn to the chat. Let's see. Okay, we had two brave souls investigate biases. Thank you, Ifiolua. And then Alex, still cover to cover, read the transcriptions. Interesting. Yes. Okay. So making sure that you're confirming what's there. Question, observe, and follow. Aha, I like that one. And using cultural assets to think about what are the appropriate principles for your chapter, your region, your office, your person. I've probably spoken too much, so I'm going to turn to the Q&A and see if Cheng, I'll turn the time over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Zach, so much for this very informative sessions. And I actually was typing a lot of notes, and also I taken notes of all the answered questions by far. I think some of the questions get answered along the way, so I will do some summarizations into three questions. And I just also generally to commenting on this session, I think this is really a 101 for AI-enabled evaluation. Zach has shed the light of AI with a lot of the way of thinking. And I think the key some concept is not only about learning the AI, but also about having the principles and ethics used so that we can apply AI into a better use. So that is something that is crucially important. And I think because as someone who does not have that quantitative skills, a lot of the topic that covered is still a mystic. But folks, if you want to review the sessions, we are recording this and we will be posting on the Asian Pacific Evaluation Association YouTube. You can definitely review that sessions and read more of the materials that Dak has shared in the PowerPoint. And this is really AI 101. Okay, so I'm going backward, and one of the questions that has been asked is about so AI is generating some common generalized findings, and if we are working in similar area of evaluation, the AI probably could generating similar answers. And the question is, how do you improve or contextualize the contextual of these common findings? I think this is more about tailor this to specific projects.
Okay. So if I understand correctly, is how do we improve the relevance and the would it be accuracy of the
Yeah,
contextual? Okay.
yeah,
So the contextual relevance of the responses of the AI outputs.
yes.
Well, there's a handful of things. Thank you for whoever asked that. One of which is in the US, we had in fact, a handful of reality TV shows of a dog whisperer called Caesar Milan. And Caesar Milan, for those of you who don't know him, kind of a controversial figure in some ways because apparently he has a style of raising dogs that is not in favor anymore. But the reality show that he'd have was basically he'd go to someone's house who's like a struggling dog owner, and they're just throwing their hands in the air and they say, I don't know what to do. I have a problem dog. And Caesar Milan would say, oh, I'm observing your dog, and it's actually not your dog, it's you. And what that it was always funny to see that happen and play out where Caesar was able to quickly kind of lead the dog into the desired behaviors. But for folks, sometimes AI can feel like a dog in that it's wild and it's not doing what we want it to do. And I say this as a dog owner. And there are things that we can do. And the first thing is something called prompt engineering. I know you probably have heard of prompting, or maybe you haven't, but it's what we do when we interact. So there are, just as we talked about principles, for AI evaluation practice, there are principles for prompting and good prompting. And there's even very sophisticated prompt engineering techniques. And so I will say that's one. The other is to consider, can you include more context? Can you include more information in the context for context engineering? And yeah, I'll leave it at that because I'm sure there's many more questions.
Okay. Yes, and another question that has been asked previously is about how do you handle the IRBs that discourage or disallow the use of AI for data analysis? And I think I interpret IRB to be the institutional review boards. And
Yes,
another relevant question will be like, how do you give AI credit in evaluation? I think these two questions are
great.
related.
Yeah, great question. So when we know we want to use an AI tool for a data collection process or data analysis, we have an informed consent. Many evaluators don't use IRB approvals because IRBs are often a very academic research-based thing, but it's the same idea. And so I'm going to talk about just kind of informed consent in the sense that having a responsibility to make sure what you've designed in collection and analysis does not cause harm. And how we get at that is we consider if the tool we want to use is worth it. If so, we will write an informed consent statement that lets participants know that this data may, or because we may not use it, may be used, may be analyzed by AI analysis software, um, that's stored on the internet, that passes over the internet. And there's a handful of other things. We have a whole not IRB, an informed consent kind of process or training process. We've had templates we use. I'm sure you could share others, but we just really update it is all. And you need to kind of consider the specifics of what you update. But we do not collect data and use AI from data we've collected if we haven't got folks' permission, because depending on the tool, the data can be used to train, and we want to give people their stuff like their freedom and their sovereignty when it comes to their data to make decisions about that. I'll leave it at that.
Okay. And another two relevant question is, I think that you mentioned that when using evaluation, you are very specific in what task is addressed by evaluation. So one of the question is like, why and which criteria should we consider to select AI to do some task instead of all? And another relevant question would also be how AI data generation and analysis is better than the traditional data collections and analyze software. Yeah, I'll just leave it as a question.
So I'll try to remember both of them, the two questions. So let me start with the AI data generation and analysis. So AI can generate data, what we call synthetic data. And synthetic data has its uses. It can help you pilot, it can help you with your instruments and understand it with your analysis. Like if you have an analytical procedure, what type of analytical outputs to expect if it's a new one, can help you with dashboard. But with data generation, what I'll say is it's better because if you were to make synthetic data not with a computer, it would take a long time. And I'm not talking about data collection. So I heard two things in there, and maybe that's not there. There is AI enabled data collection, both in terms of text, voice, and video. And there are tools at market where you can kind of see. I'll give some off top of my head. Foretell is one that uses video avatars. Um, Qualia interviews uses text based interviews. Yeah, text based like key informant interviews, but it's an AI model. You have Survey Bot AI, which is more quantitative. You have the interactive voice response. That is an interactive voice response model where it's AI. You know what? When it comes to data collection, I I think you can have, depending on the size of your study, you can save some time and you can save some money.
Ooh.
I'm a little bearish on the data AI for data collection right now because I don't see it necessarily meeting a need that I had unless you have some issues with non-permissive environments or there are reasons to use that technology. But I know that there are colleagues who use it, and so I think it's not always better. And I think that's an important thing. AI enabled evaluation is not always better, and maybe it's not by default better, um, but AI can help us do our work better, if that makes sense. And it's up to us to determine when it isn't and doesn't. And I think that was part of the first question. What was the first question, Chen?
Yes. Okay, I think another question that maybe not addressed is like how do you ensure data security when feeding the processing of evaluation data using AI?
The short answer is you can't. You can't ensure what a private company can do or not do, or have how strong their own data security is protocols. The best we can do is determine if that's what we need to use is cloud-based, meaning that the data becomes less secure. Um, what are ways that we can improve the security of the data? And so you can choose vendors that have better ratings for their security protocols, their audits. Um, Most of the big models that we use, their systems are pretty secure. I mean, I use Google for email and Google Drive, and I put things in there, and I think what we don't realize is that, if you're working online and if you're putting data online in Google Drive or OneDrive or Dropbox or whatever it may be, it's essentially the same thing with the AI tools, except for the AI tools, depending on which one you use in your agreement, can use the data to train models, which I will say this, my Gmail is being read by Google, is being scanned because that's the user agreement, and people don't know that. But if you use a service like that, you've said, yes, you can read all of my data, you can use that data, and Google is using it for training. I'm kind of going on a philosophical rant here, but let me get more practical. You can decide who you want to use and not use. You can opt for services that'll give you extra protections, like enterprise features that give you the ability to have more secure data that doesn't leave an ecosystem. You can air gap your data where you don't have your data go online, but you can say, I still want to use an AI tool. I am going to maybe download that a smaller tool onto my computer. So a small language model, if the task is very specific and you know what you can do, especially an analytical task. Or you can just not upload data if it's really sensitive. We don't upload, even if we use cloud-based AI, we do not upload people's personally identifiable information. We will clean that data, we will scrub it, we will make sure that it is anonymized.
Okay, that is a very comprehensive questions, and I think one last question from my end is that I'm asking on behalf of the YEE who does not possess the quantitative skills before, but they are trying to develop. So, what is your recommendation to start? I think a lot of our background probably econometrics are regression, but how do we switch from something that we are not familiar to AI-enabled softwares or learning? Yeah, general.
And was that for qualitative or
Uh,
quantitative or just AI?
I think it is if someone has not touched on AI, if someone has not touched on data processing, so quantitative research, that's the first layer of YEEs, and the second layer will be someone already familiar with some of the traditional way of data analysis, but they are switching to AI enabled. Like what is the recommendations for you for those two groups of people?
Okay. I think for those two group of people, and even everyone, if you don't you fit into that category, going about your work, whether that's school, whether that's work, or otherwise, and having an AI chatbot open and asking and kind of thinking about that chatbot as a thought partner. I don't like to um, anthropomorphize the technology or say this is an embodied physical partner, but that it's a tool that would serve a function as a thought partner and help you think about new ways of doing analysis. I know I've used AI to remind me of assumptions in quantitative analysis for very like random sophisticated statistical techniques that I don't use every day, that I'm unfamiliar, I need to be reminded of. And the same can be done with qualitative in terms of having kind of a mentor, so to speak, of saying what to help me identify the gaps that I have. I mean, if you can be creative with the technology, there's a great deal of evaluation capacity development that can be done just with you and the technology. You still need to check the pudding, or as my colleague put here, which I forget what it was. Um, yeah, I can't see it, but you still need to question, observe, and follow. But I would view your relationship as kind of like, I have this expert who is an expert in qual analysis or quant analysis. How can they help me upskill? And it's going to be based on your reconfiguring how you view the technology and the questions that you ask. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay. And now I think all the questions in the chat box has been addressed. And folks, please feel free to raise up your hands if you have any new questions or leave new questions in the chat box. As we still have like 10 more minutes with Zach, and Zach is such an expert, so please take these opportunities.
And I'm just reviewing the questions and make sure that I actually understood them and answered them. Whoop, sorry.
Okay, I think a lot of people are just sharing profiles to get connected. Yeah, it's a good way of get connections. If there's no more question, I have other question prepared for Zach, just to take maximum use of your time. And So I think the concept of evaluation is actually quite diverse in terms of how people are understanding it. And sometimes we talk evaluation in a way that we more lean into impact evaluations or more into research. And sometimes we talk about evaluation more on the programmatic side of project, a small project size of evaluation, which may be not worth in use of AI, but in a way that how AI assisting data process. And I'm just very curious in terms of Zach, your background in evaluations and what evaluation you normally do, and how do you find AI actually helping you to save more times and energies, I guess.
Okay. So my background is I got started in international at my M&E the start of my M&E career started when I was a Peace Corps volunteer, and so I was someone doing programming. I was in international development, and I got really concerned that we were intervening in people's lives and not having the reflective practice. My practice then merged into peace building evaluation. And so the work and the context where I was tasked to work being these fragile and conflict affected violent settings. And so that kind of also started with my curiosity of using technology. We started to use technology for mobile data collection in 2014, 2013 when I was a volunteer. And so I think I've always had a tech aspect of the evaluation. And honestly, everyone who's an evaluator these days uses technology, right? There's not one individual doesn't use a computer that doesn't process data with a computer. And my training, I'm trained in both quantitative and qualitative methods at the doctoral level, but I really enjoy the qualitative work. I enjoy getting into. It's fun to be able to be one and done with my quantitative stuff, and the qualitative is just a little bit more challenging for me, and I think it's also rewarding. Um, Yeah, so I think evaluation wise, I've done small ones, I've done big ones. That one example of the AI that we use, that was actually a big portfolio evaluation that we did mostly in Asia on ocean plastic reduction. And that was I was leading a team of 4 evaluators. And so it was nice to be able to have a really big evaluation project, but I enjoy just as much the very small community-based, small light touch evaluation work.
Okay. Yeah, thank you so much, Zach. And I think today's session is very comprehensive. Would you mind go to the next slides?
Sure.
Okay, so now it will be a time for group photos. And please open up your cameras and well, we can take a group photo together. And okay, and Dak, would you mind stop sharing for now and then we can come back
Sure.
later? Okay, and everyone, yeah. I'll be the one who taking photos. So, but we got a large group of people, so I'm gonna take it one page by one page. So please freeze your smile while I'm taking photos. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Okay, first done. Okay. Now I'm going to the second page. 3, 2, 1. Okay. Last page. 3, 2, 1. Perfect. Thank you, everyone. And now, Dak, would you mind come back to the slides? And we have few more announcements for our next sessions and also future events. Yeah, next slides. Yes, and also we'll be inviting Li Ping, the co-leader of Eval Use Asia, to do the closing remark before the announcement.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chen. And hi, everyone. I'm the co-lead of EVA Use Asia and also a researcher on evidence-based policy making. My work mainly focused on the meta evaluation, like Zach mentioned. So I'm really benefit from AI based on my work. It's like we always deal with the data, like screening and coding, but on average, it's like we need take at least half a year to do the screening and coding. But with AI, we just need 1 week to update, and also now we can make the evidence, make it alive and update every month or every year. It's so helpful. So nowadays, the AI has been a hot topic everywhere. It speeds up our work and spark new ideas, and also helps connect our evaluation community better. But but I just want to highlight 2 issues. One is the transparency when you use the AI in evaluations. Like at least when you use it, when you report, you need report it how you use it, and then other evaluators can know how you use it and then repeat your methods. And second is like the final key takeaway by Zach, that we own AI, not other way around. It's a tool, not a replacement. We shouldn't rely on it too much, and it's the magic just happened when we balance between AI with our own human expertise. So I noticed some questions on the when we need to use AI or how or what the boundary. But at least when you use it, at least you should have the basic knowledge of the task you want AI to help you to resolve the questions. That is my 2 thoughts on today's workshop. But before I wrap up, I want to speak some words to OYE here. This training is just a start or evaluation network are at least one of your asset for growth. So please dive in Evaluate networks and sign up for upcoming webinars or workshops and seek out hands-on chances to learn. It's your space to learn, to ask, and also to step into leadership roles. So don't hold back and step forward, dive right in and grow up alongside all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Li Ping. And would you mind go to the next slide? And now we will be having the announcement for our next webinar. It will be in topic from Indigenous Voice to National Dialogue, Experiences Strengthening Indigenous Evaluation in Nepal. And the speakers will be the president of Nepal Evaluation Societies and also chairman of the Community of Evaluators in Nepal. And the moderator will be the chairperson of Evaluation Association of Bhutan. And the session will be currently scheduled on September 9th, and the registration link will also be published in our networks, and you definitely can register, and we look forward to see you in the next sessions. And next slide. And also, as I think people are already very energetic about the APIA conference, and it is happening in Tokyo, November 11th to 14th this year. And we also have a PIA manager and coordinator here. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. And this conference is also opening for a register if you scan the QR code or go to the website. Yes, and I think Apia has already assisted in posting the link in the chat, and you can also copy the link and open in browser and register there. Next slide. Yes, and thank you so much, and let's keep in touch. And this is such a successful workshop, and we really appreciate that you being with us and how you share your information and how the Q&A session is all go very, very smoothly. People have all their questions addressed. Everything is so perfectly done. And appreciation also goes to PIA, Eval Use Asia, Eval Use And also, we are also part of a campaign of Decade for Evaluation for Actions and also the APC Communication Hub. Yeah, that will be it. And thank you so much, everyone. And we look forward to see you in our next sessions or future conferences and events. Thank you.